Yeah.
Okay.
I'm right there with you.
Okay, it is 7:30, so we're going to call the committee of the whole meeting to order on Tuesday, December 5th. First item on the agenda is roll call.
Rosado?
Here.
Atack?
Here.
Stark? Here. Chansett? Wolf?
Here.
Salvati?
Here.
Brown?
Here?
O'Brien? Callahan?
Here.
Meitzler? Malay?
Here.
Ewer?
Here.
Saron?
Here.
And McFadden?
Here.
Okay, we do have 11 out of the 14 aldermen, so we have the quorum that's necessary to conduct the meeting. Next item is item number 2, which is items removed, added, or changed, and I don't believe we have anything. Okay. Item 3, matters from the public for items that are not on the agenda. So the way we do it is if you have something that you'd like to address us on that is not on the agenda, now would be a good time to come up to the podium and tell us your thoughts. But if you want to address us on something that is on the agenda, for example, tonight, the initial land use plan, there'll be an opportunity there for you to do that. But for the other 2 items, what you would like to do is just get my attention, and we'll make sure you get up here and have a chance to address us on those items. So does anybody have anything they'd like to address us on now for an item that is not on the agenda? Okay. Item 4, which is the initial land use proposal for the Villas of White Oaks located at 3 South 199 South Verdant Road. Alderman Stark.
Thank you. Patrick Cackert has submitted an application for initial land use proposal review, ILUP, to consider a development plan for his family's property on South Verdant Road. The applicant proposes a 60-unit age duplex development. 60-unit age duplex.
Age restricted?
Age
Okay.
restricted.
There's something, 60, is it 60 units or is it 60 and over? It just reads weird. The proposed development site is approximately 17.9 acres. And they also own additionally 6.6 acres to the south. The city council has discussed this property previously in 2006 and 2008. The ILUP process allows the council to discuss proposed new uses of land that differ from what is prescribed for a property in the comprehensive plan or the official zoning map, and to give the general public an opportunity to participate in the council's review. The goal of the process is to discuss issues regarding the proposed change in use and provide general commentary on the proposal. The result of the process is that the applicant may identify the major areas of concern of the COW and address the concerns in refined formal zoning application. If the concerns are insurmountable, the applicant will be so informed it can avoid a significant time or expense down the road. This process is not intended to provide a comprehensive, detail-oriented review and focuses on the broader concepts of the proposal. So it's currently in an unincorporated area. The comprehensive planned land use map identifies the property for residential of greater than 0.5 to 2 dwelling units per acre. The gross density of the proposed plan is approximately 3.35 units per acre, which would require reclassification of the property. Inclusion of the existing residence and property reduces the density to approximately 2.48 units per acre. That would also require amending the land use map. So we discussed this annexation back in 2006 without a development plan. The Community Development Committee preferred to see annexation with development in 2008 as part of consideration for a potential annexation to the city of Aurora. The CDC discussed whether it would pursue an intergovernmental agreement to make roadway and utility connections to facilitate development. The CDC did not wish to pursue such an agreement with Aurora and encouraged pursuit of future development within the city of Batavia. In 2009, the committee discussed annexation of potential annexation agreement for development with a mix of triplexes and duplexes. Direction at that time was to proceed with negotiation of an annexation agreement. There is no boundary agreement with the city of Aurora, and the property could be annexed to either municipality. So in terms of information that was submitted by the applicant proposes an age-restricted development consisting of duplexes ranging in size from 1,750 to 2,400 square feet. Standard models would be in ranch configurations with optional second floor spaces. Example architecture is included in the submission. Application materials note a maintenance-free lifestyle for residents, with lawn maintenance being provided by homeowners association. The homes would be staggered throughout the development on an internal loop road and cul-de-sacs. Lot patterns are not depicted on the provided plan. Site access is provided from South Burdett Road at the Stiers Court and Ekman Drive intersections. The driveway for the existing home is shown to be routed to an external road from Redant. Sidewalks are indicated throughout the subdivision. The plan depicts a 2.35 acre stormwater management area easement. A landscape easement is provided along Redant Road for common landscaping, and large setbacks provide distance from the proposed duplexes and adjacent residences. So, from the staff analysis perspective, an age-restricted development would be by deed restriction that would disallow residents under a certain age. With such a deed restriction, it would not be subject to school district land cash fees. The property would be subject to park district land cash contribution. The property is located outside of the Batavia facilities planning area and would be served by Fox Metro for sanitary sewer service. The current plans depict items that would require revisions to comply with the zoning and subdivision regulations or seek code modification variances from subdivision regulations. While detail of the site design is not the focus of the ILUP, these would include front and corner setbacks and interior building setbacks. Additionally, roadway and right-of-way dimensions such as 60-foot right-of-ways, roadway widths, and cul-de-sac radii would not comply. Staff would seek the applicant to comply with these requirements with plan revisions. So further to this, staff recommends the COW conduct the ILUP as prescribed in the zoning code as follows. Allow up to 10 minutes for the applicant to make a presentation, after which the COW may ask questions of the applicant. Provide up to 10 minutes for staff to add relevant information, after which COW may ask questions of the staff. Provide up to 30 minutes for public comments. Discuss issues related to the proposed land use change and to provide general commentary to the applicant. And we won't be voting. There'll be no vote or straw poll occurs as part of this discussion. So in terms of timelines, there is no specific timeline. Commentary from the COW will assist the applicant in determining their next steps. This is a voluntary process by the applicant who may submit complete applications for entitlements at any time. A public hearing before the Plan Commission would be scheduled after receipt and staff review of those applications and authorizations from the City Council to commence work in the annexation. So again, as was noted in the staff memo, this is very preliminary. It's what we used to call the heart attack test in terms of the developer comes in and tries to gauge whether or not we'd be receptive to this project. So of course, we're not going to talk about whether it's going to be junipers or it's going to be, non-evergreen bushes in the landscape plan, and whether the houses are blue, green, or pink. We're just going to talk basically about whether we think that this is a feasible plan for the developer. So that said, if the applicant would like to come up and make a presentation, and thank you very much for these nice brochures. These are terrific. And we'd love to hear you. If you would state your name and your company name for the record, that'd be appreciated.
Thank you. Good evening, committee. Patrick Cackert, the company name is Restoration Techs. If you could bear with me here, I got a short PowerPoint presentation. All right. Just simply a few things about myself so you know who I am and why I'm here. I am the president and owner of Restoration Techs. It's a family and veteran-owned small business. I'm a long-term resident and business owner in both Batavia and North Aurora. I have 20 years plus experience in restoration, construction, and real estate. I am also an Illinois licensed real estate managing broker. And I also hold the professional certification of Certified Restorer by the Restoration Industry Association. Some personal things, I'm also a 27-year veteran of the United States Marine Corps Reserve. I'm currently married and reside in Aurora with 4 daughters who attend Holy Cross in Batavia. In our spare time, my wife and I also serve as the Toys for Tots coordinators for all of Kane County. The Villas of White Oaks. Originally, when this was proposed in 2009, it was originally proposed for 61 units. We had multiple discussions with staff and committee, and at that time, of course, we had to go ahead to discuss and negotiate an annexation agreement. But I'm sure, as all of you are aware, in 2009, the housing market imploded. So obviously, timing was not right. So we held off. We're back. We'd like to proceed with this development. It currently, it comes out as 19.06 acres. I'm not sure where the 17 number came from. But the proposed plan is for 60 luxury attached villas. It's an age-restricted community of 55 years plus. They'll be in 2-unit clusters. The detention stormwater management area will be green. And of course, we're going to try to preserve all the natural trees that are savable. Over the years, there has been some deterioration of trees, and there have been some invasive species that have been removed. We're going to continue to keep the landscape privacy berms along Rodant Road, and also plan on putting lush landscaping trees along the perimeter of the project, and also throughout the subdivision for privacy. You can see there's 2 entry points, one off of Stiers Court and the other off of Ekman. This was based on discussions with staff and engineering. This is a elevation shot of the proposed units. Again, there'll be 2 units. As you can see, the architectural design, we are going to be using gable sloping roof lines, attractive gables and dormers. The shingles will be architectural. The front exteriors will have a mixture of brick and stone. Also, the front entry areas will be covered along with the rear verandas, stone address plaques. We have architectural garage doors, and also concrete walks and asphalt driveways. And then, as mentioned in the brief, the common area will be maintained professionally by a homeowner association. Lawn maintenance and snow removal. That's a recap. The interior, we've come up with 3 different distinct floor plans. All of them will be ranch, single floor, ranging in square footage from 1,700 to 2,400 square feet. All 3 plans are 2-bedroom, 2 baths, and they all have an optional loft, which would add a 3rd bedroom and a 3rd bath on the 2nd floor if they so choose. Our initial preliminary pricing is in the low 300s. More interior, 9-foot first floor ceilings, gourmet kitchens, 3-foot doorways, luxury master baths, double hung windows, volume ceilings, hardwood floors in common areas, ceramic floors in kitchens and baths. Basements will be full, deep pour, 9-foot, and we're going to offer optional fireplaces, and the garages will be 2-car full. Why the Villas of White Oaks? There's the definite need for maintenance-free luxury residences in Batavia and also the Fox Valley area. Currently, the city of Batavia does not have a housing option that's exclusively for the 55-year older demographic. There will be no impact on the Batavia school system, only tax revenue. There'll be no traffic impact on the surrounding subdivisions, less impact than a single-family development, and less dense as in terms of people and population. And again, lastly, to broaden the city of Batavia's housing mix, otherwise known, otherwise known as we're going to try to keep Grandma and Grandpa here in town. So our proposal, we'd like to annex into the city of Batavia, rezone, and have an amendment to the land use map to accommodate the project as we've designed it and discussed with staff. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have questions of the developer?
Susan, use the mic, please.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't leaning forward. Does anyone have questions of the developer? Applicant?
The changes that we talked about originally in the, what Susan had read originally, what talked about redoing some of the roads, is that in the plan that's already up there, or would that be in addition to what you've shown us as far as widening the roads or changing
the site plan originally, after preliminary discussions earlier in the year, we talked to staff about that, and we were going to widen the roads to the requirements. We're still trying to work out the request for removal of the eyebrows at the north end of the subdivision. We're still trying to work that out.
Anyone else have questions? guess that's it for right now.
No, I have a
Oh, sorry, I didn't see you, Nick.
I wasn't around in 2008. Obviously, it got approved basically for the same process. It was a little different design, but you were going to annex into Batavia.
Correct.
And how far along in the approval process did you get before the implosion?
We had met with staff, we had preliminary hearings, and the last, I think it's in the minutes from October. The minutes from October 29, 2009 of the Community Development Committee, there was a recommendation that staff enter into negotiations for the annexation of the entire parcel, which includes the 6.6, and it passed unanimously. And that plan was actually 61 units. So since then, we've taken one away and just kind of opened things up and spread things out a little bit more.
How'd you get 61 units on duplexes?
Well, at that time, it was a mixture of duplexes and triplexes.
Gotcha, okay.
So the concept when we redesigned it, we got rid of the triplexes because as we found in the past, no one likes to be the middle unit. So in this case, everybody has an end unit.
Right. Maybe for Laura, what, the process internally for us, what is that from here to go forward? And then back then to Pat, then at that point, when you get approval, what type of time frame would you be looking at? But I'd want to hear that answer.
Absolutely. Scott is here and Drew, either one.
The initial land use process is just the first step. Once they get the feedback from the committee about this, then they would presumably submit a formal application for zoning, which would entail the annexation agreement, amendment to the comprehensive plan map amendment for the zoning change, and probably a plan development overlay. So that would all go through the Plan Commission, and then ultimately the committee and the City Council would vote on that. There would be 2 public hearings involved. The first would be in front of the Plan Commission. The second one would be in front of the City Council as part of the annexation agreement. So there's always a public hearing on the annexation agreement as part of this. So that would be the steps, and there would be obviously public input allowed along the way.
And then in regards to the annexation, is there any resistance or, I mean, is that just a simple process, or what do we go through for that?
Annexation can be simple or it can be complicated depending on what it is. In this case, it's a little more complicated because it involves development, and then we would negotiate an annexation agreement in advance of the annexation so that it outlines the terms and conditions of how we annex the property, how it can be developed, what the obligations of the developer are as part of the development. So that's all negotiated and put into the annexation agreement as part of the whole development process.
Okay, thank you.
Scott, we don't like complicated.
Well, there are simple ways to just simply annex property. We could just pass an ordinance to annex it. This, because it involves development, has a little more complexity with an agreement. That's why I say that it's complicated.
Anyone else have questions?
Well, then I'd just lead to Pat. What are you looking, let's say that process is a 1-year process. What do you foresee from a start to finish? How do you foresee this going?
I hope it doesn't take a year. It's our goal to hopefully, push forward on approval, and hopefully be moving dirt in the spring with a model up midsummer and selling by the end of the year. I mean, there is a definite need. I should mention, when I sent out the notification to the homeowners within 500 feet, we did get 2 inquiries from that notification of 2 separate people that were interested in buying one. So they obviously like Batavia and they want to stay here.
Mark?
Couple things. The existing driveway, is that going to sort of looks like it shows on your plan? Is it going to come off of the interior road then?
Which driveway is that?
The existing driveway that's there right now that comes off near Ekman. So is that just going to the house?
Oh, that's going to go away. So it actually ties into the cul-de-sac. Here, let's back up.
That's what I'm saying. So it's just going to come off of the road,
Yes.
the interior road. You're not planning on taking it out to
No.
Dan for a different. Okay. The other thing is I saw that, and this is not necessarily a question.
Mark, pull the mic up to it.
Sorry. The water would be, or for the sewage would be Fox Metro. Is there any reason why we wouldn't try and extend down to there?
Oh, there's that.
Do it.
It's actually in Fox Metro's facilities planning area right now, so it's already been annexed into Fox Metro. He's already paid the fees, to annex that in. And then also, we are as part of the sewage study we did, a few years back, this area, among others, was planned to be going to Fox Metro. So, to pump it back up the other way would be a little counterintuitive right now, so.
Marty, you have a question?
I was just going to ask regarding the Fox Metro,
Yes.
what about electric? Would that be city or?
City of Batavia.
Anyone else?
In regard to that, Susan, we do have other areas in town that we treat the same way. It's got Fox Metro for sewer, and all the other utilities are the city of Batavia.
Yep.
And we do have other areas that are annexed for this, with the same thought in mind that have yet to be developed.
Right.
Yep.
Mooseheart is one. that
Mooseheart
comes
is
to
a
mind.
big example of it.
Good example.
Yeah, we can't afford to run sewer pipes that far. Scott?
I know that we have, there's some people that have already brought up some questions just about water detention. And because there's already some issues with water going into the backyards, and I just want to make sure that this addresses that. This is going to be, I know there's some areas to the north, there's a detention area, then to the east, there's the homes on Gillen Water that they've been getting some water too. So I just want to make sure that this is addressing that.
It is.
Anyone else?
Scott, do you want to maybe address that a little bit more so everybody's clear on that, how you can't transfer water from one property to the other?
Right. There are certain rules and regulations as to how you can handle stormwater detention, and this development would be required to have on-site stormwater detention built as part of the Kane County Stormwater Ordinance, which is what we follow. It would then, be engineered to make sure that it is not flooding other properties. And typically what happens is when you do these developments, they oftentimes improve drainage situations that maybe are not draining as well as they should be in certain areas. So they would be required to follow the Kane County Stormwater Ordinance regarding, the on-site detention and discharge.
Thank you. Anyone else? Comments or questions? Okay. Now, staff, do you have any other relevant information you'd like to add to this? You've got 10 minutes. Go.
I don't think there's anything else
Okay.
needs to be added. As Patrick mentioned, that there really isn't a housing type like this in town right now. Mooseheart is slated to have an age-restricted type of development, but we really don't have anything that's out there right now. So in terms of the initial land use process, the main issue I think that we put in the memo is the fact that there is a change in density going from a more typical single-family density to a slightly higher density that is also typical in single-family neighborhoods, but not immediately surrounding this particular property.
So when you say that, if I'm understanding this correctly, the reason it's different than anything we have is that because it's a higher end age restricted, because we have other age restricted, but it isn't at this level?
We don't have any age restricted that's single family attached or detached for that matter. Most all of our age restricted developments right now are apartments. So that would be the difference.
Are the, I don't know if they're duplexes, townhouses, what they are just south of Mill. They're by the ball field, across the street from the ball field over by,
I know.
Millview.
you know where I mean?
Across from the Moose?
Yeah, from the Moose.
Moose Lodge?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
What are those?
Those aren't age restricted.
Those aren't age restricted. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yep.
So, and then now we will be happy to take public comment. So if anyone would like to address the council about this project, if you have any questions or concerns, if you'd like to come up and use the mic and then state your name for the record, that would be terrific.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Please come on up. Susan, I know you can't see everybody.
No, I
today,
cannot.
right, so.
Could you put the picture back up of the lights now? The grass.
You want to pull up the main one? Oh, that one. There it is.
My name is Sharon Gaden, and I reside at 1115 Wind Energy Pass, and I have lived there for the last 18 and a half years. We moved here in 1999 when there were only 6 houses on Wind Energy Pass east of Verdant. Then the third phase of Prairie Trails and Kirkland Chase and the Walmart were built. It was after this that we started experiencing flooding over and beyond the secondary basin, and now the backup of the pond is into the backyards between the 3 houses on the north side of Wind Energy Pass and Buffalo Trail. That the water backs up from the manholes that come off the pond. During heavy or extended rainfalls, the secondary basin fills at a rate much faster than it can empty to the south and east. The street department has, told me where our water goes. And the water shoots out of the grate and the manhole that is within a few feet of the fence there that goes from the backyards of Wind Energy to the property. Let's see. So that this area south of the fence becomes a floodplain and a release of the pressure point of our water problems over there between our pond and the secondary basin. When we bought there, this land had an official sign, or appeared to be an official sign, showing it to be a sanctuary area, that land, which disappeared sometime just before they tried to get it approved back in 2008, you said? So I have many pictures which I would like to share with any of you who would like to see them of how much this whole area becomes flooded when it rains. This spring at 1.5 inches with saturated ground. I have pictures of my flooding in my yard and in the area along the fence. We have been flooded probably from 2010 till now 6 times. It floods sometimes when it rains 3 inches, 6 inches, 9 inches, and just any time the ground gets saturated. The density of the proposed housing and the lack of a considerable basin behind our secondary basin indicates that this plan must be modified to take into account before this plan is given any serious consideration, and failure to do so will jeopardize even more serious flooding in the adjacent neighborhood. And I will point out on the, up there, whoops, the flooding goes from where lots 17, 18, 19, and 20 are. Pretty much any time our secondary basin goes to the top. And that water literally comes out of the city manhole that has the grate there. It goes up like a fountain. So if they think they can just build a berm there to keep that water out, then Wind Energy Pass will no longer be passable on the times when that happens. And like I said, it happens every other year roughly since 2010, and possibly some years it happened more than once. So I just would hope that you can do something engineering-wise and put another whole basin in there where that area is, so that we have some kind of a, to alleviate, or prevent worse flooding. In my backyard, and I am on the north side of Wind Energy, the second lot away from the pond, and my yard, since the city allowed all my neighbors to build berms and raise their landscape, the water now pools in my backyard, and I have about $3,000 worth of swimming pool equipment that are been in jeopardy. And matter of fact, the last time that it did flood and the engineers were out there, the water, when I walked in to take the pictures, had low what do they call that one, electrical, because our AT&T and everything was up to the top in the water.
What she's saying is.
So I seriously hope, and we'll sit down with any of the streets or the engineering and show them the pictures of what is going on there so that they can plan this right before they do anything further. Because like I said, we're a main thoroughfare there, and that water is just getting worse and worse. And our water competes with the water from the two huge basins, according to the streets, that come from the Prairie Trail side and head east. When we bought there, we thought we built on the top and that we would be safe from flooding issues, but we found out that that water goes east more instead of going downhill towards the river. So that water there competes with our water trying to go east as it is existing today. And I don't know where this water would be going to from this, but we already have, like I said, the issues started when Gillen Water went back around, and then I think Walmart going in there was the final straw, because our water all has to go from there somehow underneath Kirk to those basins, as far as I understand. So it's a big problem, that kind of volume, and that many more roofs where that water is just going to run off and won't be able to go into the ground.
Well, those are certainly the kind of comments that we need to hear.
I will be glad to sit down any day with anyone and show you the pictures of the flooding that exists now. And like I said, it happens multiple times. Your street guys have been better about coming out and trying to assist when, and try to maintain that a little better. But no matter how well it's maintained, we've had the flooding.
Okay.
Because from 1999 to 2015, I always made sure that was not blocked before it rains.
Well, like I say, those are the comments we need to hear so that the staff can be fully aware of everything, and it sounds like they probably already are. But as Scott said,
I'm not your
the Kane County Stormwater Ordinance is much stricter now than what it was back when Wind Energy
I mean,
Pass
the
was
proof is,
put
if
in.
you walk around the neighborhood, the basin they built at the bottom of Wind Energy, on the far east end, is humongous, and there's a second basin on the south side behind, that's smaller. And we have this one mess of a pond going into that secondary. And like I said, our water is competing with a way bigger basin to head wherever it's going. And if you add 60 more houses into this, I assure you, the issue will spill over onto both sides of it, Prairie Trails and. So
Okay.
I just would like anybody, I will leave my name, phone number, whatever, and I will show whoever wants to see the pictures of it. Unfortunately, I can't transfer them from my phone to the computer. I don't have that capability.
So part of our process will be an internal review, and it is with the Community Development Department, but also many other departments within the city of Batavia, and one of those being the Public Works Department and the Engineering Department, and they take a look at all of these drainage issues. So I'm glad to hear that
I would love to show them the pictures.
have
'cause
had
like I
some
said,
of these.
I would like what's happening now fixed, but if they add this into the mix, I don't know what it'll look like. And unfortunately, I have lived in a house in an area where it did flood, and I was not able to sell that house until the city could, in writing, guarantee that the problem was fixed. And I do not want to end up in that situation again.
Thank you.
Thank
Point
you.
well noted, thank you.
Anyone else? If you could state your name for the record, please.
My name is Cheryl Puro, and my husband Ron and I live at 975 Wind Energy Pass. I'd like to piggyback on what she said. We live on the other side of Wind Energy, the other side of Redant, and the water has just been terrible. The last couple of years, it's gotten worse. We've taken video of how the street gets flooded over, and then the two areas across from our house, it's a retention area there, that'll just fill up, and it almost, at some points, it'll be like, it'll connect. The two retention areas will connect. It has gotten bad for the past couple of years, so I don't know what's going on with that. But, so this is a concern for us, adding these extra houses and all of the water flow. So I had a couple concerns about this. We've lived in our home since 1998, and so I was here for the meetings that we had in 2008 concerning the same project. There were many more people here than there are tonight, and it makes me wonder why that is. And excuse me, I'm a little nervous about this speaking, but back when this was originally told to us in 2008, everybody received these letters from attorneys about what they were trying to do with this development. So our PIN numbers on here for our taxes and all that. So of course people were concerned. They opened it up. They wanted to see what was going on. There was a lot of feedback from people opposing this development, saying basically that it didn't fit in our community, the single-family homes that we have in the area. And so that was a big part of it. I know there were way more issues with Aurora and Marmion and all the annexing and all that. So now, here we are, and 9 years later, and we get this in the mail. Just an envelope. And on the back, it has restoration text. What is that? I don't know. You know, it looks to me like junk mail. So the only reason my husband opened it was that the way that it's typed on here, or the label is written on here, is exactly how our tax bill shows our names. So my husband opened it. Otherwise, he would have pitched it. So in it was the letter from Mr. Cackert and the proposal for this Villas of White Oaks. So we thought, oh boy, this is coming around again. We thought that that was a dead issue because years ago, you know, it was basically voted down. There was so much opposition from people. There was a lady who had petition signatures from everybody in the area that it just wasn't a good fit for our area. And so I'm concerned about this because I think most of these got pitched. And this gentleman said that there were 500 that were mailed and he only had 2 replies. I've talked with a few neighbors about it. Couple don't recall getting it. So maybe they did pitch it. I don't know. But that's a big concern because I think if more people really did know about it, there would be more people present here today. But that's just speculation.
You know, that's interesting that you bring that up because even back then when it was originally proposed, our radius at that time for the legal notice was like 200 or 250 feet.
Yeah,
and now it's 500 feet. So
okay.
It's been expanded double the size of what it was, and we did that because a lot of people were concerned that we weren't notifying enough people in the neighborhood. So we did that. I forget how many years ago, but so it's kind of interesting that even though the radius has been expanded, you feel as though less people are aware of it.
I wonder. I really wonder.
At this stage, I don't think it's a requirement to have like a registered letter set out when they go to the public hearing and everything. Then it is truly a requirement that it has to be a registered letter that goes out, correct? Is there a change in that when we get to that stage?
It does not have to be registered, but it does have to be regular first class.
Okay.
For notice like that.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just found that interesting.
That's fine. So those are the points really that I just wanted to make. Who is the builder? You know, who is a legitimate builder that is building these homes? Is it, can you name the builder of who it is?
Yes.
And what does restoration text, are they really associated with this development? I don't understand that.
We'll let if you don't mind, Susan, we'll let the developer answer that question.
Absolutely. We'd be happy to. And then I also wanted to let you know that this is the first of many, many steps.
Sure.
And so there will be plenty of time if this project moves, if the developer decides to apply for full application, there will be public hearings, et cetera, so that people will be notified that there will be an opportunity to speak about it. There will be signs posted on the property, et cetera.
Okay. And did I hear correctly or incorrectly earlier that he said that that development was annexed into the city of Batavia in 2009, October, unanimously?
It has not been.
What was it then that he said that was unanimously voted on in October of 2009.
The proposal. That's what I heard.
In 2009, it was a discussion of proceeding with an annexation agreement for the property. There was not any approval of the development or the layout or anything like that. It was just a motion to proceed with that annexation agreement process.
Thank you.
Yeah, as my memory serves me right, and being on the council at that point, we did not want it to go to Aurora. We wanted it to be annexed into Batavia so that we would have control over it, the development.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
If you'd like to come up again and speak about your company, that would be terrific, so that we can finish the last speaker.
Sure. Just a few clarifications. The notice that went out was sent out to all the homeowners within the 500-foot radius. The list was provided by the city of Batavia. It was also cross-checked against the tax records. And again, it was no requirement for registered or certified mail. The Restoration Tex label on it is my company. I am a developer. I'm also a restoration contractor, and we do full construction services. So we have been doing this for 20 years. I've been a broker for 15. So that's who we are. That's who I am.
Thank you.
And it would be your intent to build these units then?
Yes, sir.
Well, the person we're talking to here tonight would be the person that is going to be out there.
This is the face. And to clarify, the minutes from the October 27, 2009 Community Development meeting, the committee discussed the proposed development, and the consensus was that it was a good product, and the impact of this type of neighborhood development would be less than it would be with a single-family home development. And again, additional discussions from staffs and committee stated that this product is not as high as it would be for single-family homes or as dense as in terms of people. That it was going to be an age-restricted community, and it lessens the impact on the school district. And further discussion stated that the committee was in support of the city of Batavia's annexing the property, and then the vote was called to enter into negotiations for the annexation agreement. So it wasn't specifically this plan, because the plan that was generally agreed to move forward was for 61 units.
Thank you. Anyone else have questions? I saw someone else coming up. If you could state your name for the record, please.
Sure. My name is Patricia Condon. I live at 2025 Gillenwater Street. My house will be right behind where the detention area is. And I was actually one of the two people that contacted Patrick Kacker about the development. I think this is good for Batavia. I would be definitely affected if I don't sell my house and buy one of these. But we do have a water problem in our backyard. It has increasingly gotten worse. But I look at it from a positive perspective that maybe the development will help to relieve the water that has been coming more into our backyards. It does flow pretty heavily. I have 2 drains in my backyard. And I know you call the city if it doesn't drain after 72 hours, and I've never had it linger longer than that. It always resolves its problem once the rain stops to fall. It has gotten worse. It's on my patio when it does rain, but my husband and I always talk, if they ever develop behind us, because there is a wetland right behind us, the mosquitoes are bad in the summertime because the water just lays there. So if they do develop it, I assume that the drainage or the sewers or whatever they put in will alleviate the problem in our backyard. But like you all heard, there isn't a subdivision like this in Batavia. And my husband and I have lived in our home. I've lived in Batavia since 1986, moved from the east side, the west side, and then we settled on Gillenwater. So we've been there since 1999. And we're ready to move into something else. I mean, we raised our kids here, and we'd like to stay in Batavia, and there really isn't any place in Batavia like this. So I hope you really work on the sewer problem or whatever the complaint is, but I think it would be good for our community. Again, we don't have anything like this in our community, and I would like to stay here in Batavia. I've been here since 1986. All my kids are grown. I'm almost on my 5th grandchild, and I don't want to move out of the area. I love Batavia. I don't want to move to Geneva. I don't want to move to St. Charles. So I hope you guys really look into this, and I hope it's positive for Batavia. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Father Paul Weberg, and I'm the Vice President of Marmion. We are the southern neighbor of the property in question, and we are in favor of the development. Pending your questions, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
Good evening, I'm Bill Fox. My family resides at 1103 Scheidler, which is just north of this development off of Redant Road. And I'm here to speak in favor of the project as well. I think after reviewing the documents, it appears to be, at least in my opinion, in the perfect location for this type of development. As a proud member of the demographic that is targeted for this, I can echo the sentiments of one of the previous speakers who said that unfortunately there is nothing else like this in Batavia, certainly not at this scale and at this level. And I think these units would be extremely successful. Perhaps our friends at the school board would actually give some property tax relief to the other residents of Batavia, since none of these residents would be involved with the burden of educating young men and women. So that's basically it. I think the development, as stated, is outstanding. I trust the folks at the back table to figure out any of the engineering issues and problems from a traffic perspective. Based on, again, the demographic here, traffic would be a minimal concern. And from an image or architectural perspective, when I drive north of Wind Energy to get to Scheidler, I can tell you this would be a significant improvement over many of the unincorporated properties that I pass on the way to my incorporated home. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Okay, Susan, so I guess that's the end of the public comment on it.
That is. And as we aren't doing a straw poll or we aren't doing a vote, is there anything else left for us to do on this item tonight?
Well, I'd like to just bring up the issue just to make sure that it's talked about a little bit. I mean, a few things to consider here, the type of product that's being proposed, but also the density. I mean, that is really the major issue over this request, the density change in the comprehensive plan. I myself don't have a problem with it. I just want to make sure it's brought out on the table here tonight, because this is, going forward, this is something that the developer is here tonight to hear. If there's a major issue over this density, he needs to hear this.
I don't have any issues with it, Scott?
I think just for me, I like the project. You know, our ward in particular has issues with water, lots of issues. And, you know, it sounds like we really kind of have one more that we have to look at. And I think the woman who came up in favor of this said it, that there's probably an opportunity here to remediate maybe some of the issues that are going on there. But I also want to make sure that we're looking into, you know, the slope of what's coming down from, you know, the 6th ward into my ward. Is that paying attention? And to make sure that, you know, we're accounting for that and can do something with it.
As long as it continues going down to your ward.
Yeah, it all comes downhill.
Stuff runs downhill, Scott. That's and again, this is a great time to bring up anything that you think is something. I mean, we've been through this before, where we've all, you know, kind of nodded a little yes and then sent the developer away thinking that we had warm and fuzzies, and then the developer comes back and we're like, oh, wait a minute, we don't want to do this. So prior to that happening again, it would be great if you had any major concerns that you got them out tonight, so that the developer has a good feeling as to which way he should go on this. No one has anything else? Okay, great.
Last
Well-
comment I'll make then is, it's, when you have somebody that brings in a project as prepared as what it obviously appears to be, unless you've got an issue with something like the density, there really isn't a lot that you can object to here. Certainly the water is something you have to be very cautious of. The engineering is something you have to be very cautious of. You can't expect, everybody needs to know that you can't expect this developer to fix somebody else's problem a block or two away. They have to adhere to the current Kane County Stormwater Ordinance. They can't make their situation worse. But those are all things that our engineering takes care of during the review process.
They can't contribute to a new problem.
Right. So I see nothing but favorable things here with this project. I may be one of the neighbors that moves in there with you guys sitting out there in the audience tonight.
I
don't know.
agree.
But I would encourage you to move forward.
You'll have to rent
Susan,
some
anything?
space. Okay. Barring any other comments, I think that we will send this back to staff and you do what you need to do next.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next item then is item number 5, which is ordinance 17-71, wage and salary for non-collective bargaining employees. Alderman Atek.
Yes, this is, staff is recommending a cost of living increase for all non-collective bargained employees of 2.75. And there are a few other things that they've added to the ordinance that needed to be taken care of but haven't yet. Staff looked at current economic indicators, the median public sector increases and recent arbitration trends to come up with this 2.75. It's a little bit higher than the overall average in order to get these employees back to where they were before the economic recession. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Wendy.
Thank you. As you know, 3 years ago, we had set this ordinance for the past 3 years, 15, 16, and 17. So now, of course, we're going into 18, needing to review this salary ordinance for our non-union employees. Based on that, we are only bringing a one-year proposal to you based off of having discussions with staff, with Laura, and the fact that I think our economy, while there is some improvement, there is still a little bit of volatility, and I think it's really important that we continue to monitor those things year by year to make sure we're not getting ourselves into a situation that might make it difficult for us to manage from, as you know, salaries and wages are the most expensive thing in our budget, so I want to make sure we manage that. With that being said, like Alderman Atek mentioned, that we reviewed the information and the key economic indicators, primarily the two highest being the CPIU, and then also, while these are non-union employees, looking at what are current arbitration rulings coming back in a collective bargaining setting. We currently have 6 unions that their collective bargaining agreement is ending at the end of this year. Currently very busy with those meetings, and so within the next, at the very beginning of the year, that we won't be having any meetings now, but at the very beginning of the year, I'll be beginning to bring that information also to you as we get near some agreements. So looking at all of those things pieced together, as well as there is some reporting as far as collection through our labor attorney that collects data from many clients in the state as to what, for people who have determined what their 2018 increases are looking like. So that is where the recommendation came from. I also had sent out some additional information yesterday. I wanted to just briefly go over and then answer any questions you may have. One of the things that we, in the analysis that we had looked at, and then I then provided that additionally to you, is when you look at our current non-union raises, we looked at the 10-year trend as to where has the city of Batavia kind of stacked up against the economic indicators, and additionally, well, it's not on that initial analysis, but also looking at how they stack up against our unionized groups. And so as far as the information provided for the non-union raise, you can see all of that dating back to 2008, which is when the economic crisis began, and kind of how the city of Batavia went through there. Additionally, I would only note that there are some numbers in there that were just difficult to capture. So I wanted to keep this number as clean as possible, but there are some other, I guess I would say even deeper wage changes that aren't captured in the salary group. For those of you who were here may recall, there was a 2% bonus that was given annually. That is no longer in play as well. That number is not reflected in that decrease that you see on the note. So there's even a deeper wage loss for some groups. And then additionally, during that 1 year that they took a pay decrease, there were also all of the non-union groups took furloughs as well. And that, as you can imagine, per employee had an economic loss to them as well. And those numbers are not reflected in that. So when you really look at the total increase on year to year, just in general, it could be even a deeper number if we were, I wanted to keep that number clean, but if we were to capture all of that. So with that, looking at the CPIU, the trend as far as the information that's been provided, as well as I thought another good indicator was to look at the Social Security COLA that's been given over the last 10 years. And you can see here overall, as you can imagine, there are some years when you look at the numbers year by year, some years were up, some years were down, but overall when you look at the total at the end over a 10-year period, we are very close to being in line with what would be considered a basic COLA. So from a Social Security perspective, we are literally just 1.45% off over a 10-year period. And then for the CPIU, we're 4.15%. And so additionally with that number, I would also just mention that keep in mind that's 4.15. It's not a 1 year change. I mean, that's a 10-year change that we're off. So if you divide that out from an annual basis, an employee in this group was at a minimum reaching the COLA, keeping their standard of living the same, and only have increased over a 10-year period 4% above what the economic indicators have stated. So just kind of to go over that information. Additionally, as well as when you look at our collective bargaining groups versus our non-union groups, our collective bargaining groups, the increases are, when you add them up total year, you can see what our increase was for our non-union groups. For all groups are either at 30% or above when you add the 10-year period together. So the bargaining groups are accelerating at a higher rate than our non-collective bargaining groups have been. So with all of those things being said, that's kind of where we're at in regards to the 2.75. That amount has been budgeted. So it was placed in the budget. In fact, we're a tad bit lower than what we had budgeted, and so we're able to fulfill that. And then additionally, something that's not mentioned in this, which someone may have a question about, is our wage comp study. I'm still, hopefully within the next week, I have not received the final report, but I did receive the preliminary report. They've been working on that information. So that information will be brought to you at the beginning of the year, and that is separate, and that has been budgeted separately if there is any proposed changes with that. So this is just purely from our COLA perspective. And then I don't know if anyone has any questions, but you can see there were some, I guess what I consider housekeeping issues, some changes to positions, position titles, some things that have happened over the course of this year that just needed to be updated to reflect the ordinance. And then the only other thing I would mention, it's been brought to my attention, I made an error in the car allowance for the police chief and the Public Works Director. It should be $500 instead of $450, so that if this is able to be brought forward, you'll see that change as well. And that's just a typographical error. So I don't know if anyone has any questions, any comments?
All right, would someone, there are questions?
Yeah.
Looks good.
It's a good presentation, so it's hard to, I don't know if I would have any questions. Nicely done.
All right, so would someone like to make a motion recommending to council ordinance 17-71, amending the wage and salary ordinance for non-collectively bargained employees for the calendar year 2018?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Put that on the consent.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right, ordinance number 6, or I'm sorry, item number 6, which is ordinance 17-72, an ordinance regulating the wage and salary of paid-on-call members of the Batavia Fire Department for the year 2018. Alderman Atek.
So Wendy, staff is recommending the same increase of 2.75% that they recommended for non-collectively bargained positions. And is there anything that you'd like to add to this?
No, I would just say, with conversations, our current ordinance as it reads today has been working very well with our part-time group. There's two components of it. There's when they elect for their shift work as to what they're paid hourly, and then additionally, there's an area in regards to what they call points for our part-time group if they're able to respond back to calls and things along those lines. And so there's an opportunity to earn some extra cash, but that's capped in a budgetary amount. So we make sure that stays, that we control those costs. So those are exactly that. There's no other changes, and it's just reflecting in all of those groups to be the 2.75% increase.
Are there any questions? No?
I just have just kind of a weird question, I guess. I'm sure it doesn't happen often, but it talks about firefighter reporting to another call within an hour is given the points based on whichever call is longer. Has there ever been a situation, not the right people are here, that there's been 3 calls back to back to back, and then how would something like that?
That would be something I might have to ask the chief in regards to how they manage that. I know that they do have they have a cap on the number of hours that a particular, you can't just keep coming back to calls because at some point there's a safety issue as you're not getting any sleep or rest. So I know there is a cap in that perspective, but I can definitely ask the chief and send that out.
I'm curious if there's been some oddities that have happened over time that want to make sure they're getting treated fairly.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Are there any other questions?
The only other thing I would add in regards to the paid-on-call, I know that the mayor as well as chief has spoken about this program for some time, but I would definitely say the focus, at least since I've been here as well, is that this is really proven to be a great breeding ground for our full-time workforce. So we've been definitely focusing on, as far as ensuring getting the cadet program going and getting people in to the academy. And while the reality of this program, there are many that work part-time and then move on to full-time careers elsewhere, but we also have many people that stay here, and based on, they can sign up for as many calls, even though they're part-time, as they wish, and get their experience through Batavia. So.
All right, would someone like to make a motion to recommend to council approval of ordinance 17-72 regulating the wage and salary ordinance for paid-on-call employees for the calendar year 2018?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. I think that can go consent also.
Consent also? Sure. Okay, thanks, Wendy. All right, next item is item number 7, which is project status. Laura, and other than the long list of projects that you had talked about last night, do you have anything new?
Just that we set up a meeting with Shodine to discuss the changes to the RDA, and that will be on Monday, so I should have more information for you following that meeting. Our hotel study is underway. Probably can expect to receive the results of that within about 4 weeks. The Tomley building, we received 3 proposals from local commercial realtors, and one of those stands out as the most qualified, so we'll move forward with that individual. Other than that, with the big list I gave you yesterday. I don't have any other updates unless you might have a question for me about anything.
Anybody have any questions?
I was going to ask under other, but I can ask now. When we originally had the agenda sent out, and then we mentioned it last night, we were going to talk about elected official compensation. How did that get on the agenda? You know, who put that on the agenda or how it came up? Who asked for it?
Well, we have an expired ordinance right now. That doesn't mean that it is a pressing issue, except that you have to set those rates at least 6 months prior to the next election. So sometime toward the beginning of next year, we really should look to
I know that
set
the
those.
mayor said something about it, he didn't want to talk about it and didn't want to be in an election or whatever. I understand his feelings about that, and I'm not worried about where it goes, but I think if there has to be a decision made, we need to talk about it and we need to make the decision.
There does.
Right.
So,
I'll just add the mayor, per our ordinance, and one of the things, actually, to be quite honest, I'll bring forward a recommendation is that when we set compensation going forward, that we would set it as compensation, and there wouldn't be necessarily an expiration to it unless directed by you guys to review that. Currently, right now, it's set up every year so that we absolutely have to have that conversation and bring that information forward. And it's nothing wrong with having that conversation, but I've collected some comparable data, and with that comparable data, you know, the conversation may be, hey, everything's status quo, we're going to move forward. The mayor's salary officially has expired per the ordinance, so we definitely do need to update that. And then from alderman perspective, it expires, I think it's 2019, correct? I think that's where we're at. So if we're going to have that conversation to really get that ball rolling and get that just put into place, even if it's just a matter of amending the ordinance to reflect that there's when the expiration of that, if we're going to place an expiration.
okay. I just want to make sure that we don't wait until the last second to do that. So if there is any discussion about it or anything we want to change or amend or update, whatever, we get to have time to talk about that and not have to do it because we have to do it now. I don't want to be in that situation.
Yeah, I think the conversation we'd had as well is that we'll be looking at the beginning part of the year, bringing that forward and then have that.
Thank you.
Anybody have anything else under project status or other? Marty?
Under other?
Other? Sure.
Yeah, so previously for the past couple months, we've been hearing about a lot of FOIA requests and how much time that takes. Nothing to decide tonight or even think about it, but I was going to forward out to everybody some recent studies about how you can get ahead of it. And it's talking about more transparency, and in the long run, it's a cost savings because staff is not spending a lot of time. And a lot of that with the infrastructure that we're already putting in place with the behind the scenes apps for customer facing for the residents is to put all the information out there. Our emails, everything, so they're not having to request the stuff, thereby staff's not having to spend a lot of time doing it because they can get it anyways, so just put it out there so that it's searchable. It's about a third of the states right now are making headlines and progress in that, and it appears to be the trending. So we would want to get ahead of the curve on that and start reaping some of the benefits of the cost savings of that. The article that I can send everybody has links to Gainesville, Florida, and some other cities and municipalities that already have this in place to give you an idea of some of the things and kind of the flavor of it to kind of poke around and nose around what we may want to do so that when we start putting the infrastructure in place, we can put some laws in place as to what we want released and how to make sure that it's out there.
Sounds good.
Anybody else have anything? My last comment, I guess, is it doesn't look like we're going to have a meeting next Tuesday. Is that
That's
your
correct.
thinking also?
Yeah, we don't have any agenda items for next Tuesday.
There was on the calendar last night was the Dr. Sagran Memorial, but I talked to the mayor about that today, and he's not going to be here next Tuesday.
Correct.
And he certainly needs to be here for part of that conversation. So no sense in having that conversation if he's not going to be here. So our discussion was, unless there's something else that we really have to discuss, we're already not going to have a meeting on the 19th. We've had a lot going on. There's going to be a lot going on after the first of the year, so we ought to maybe just kind of take a little breather here and not have a meeting next week nor the 19th.
So that puts we would have the city council meeting on December 18th. And then the very next meeting would be a city council meeting on January 2nd. So we wouldn't really have any business in between.
And, I mean, if something comes up between now and next Tuesday where we need the meeting, it's already scheduled.
Yeah.
So just make sure you send out a email notification of whether it's being canceled or not, so we all get it.
Sounds good.
But I'd say at this point, it doesn't sound like we're going to have a need for it.
Right.
Agenda doesn't come out on Friday, we can't have the meeting.
I understand that. But a lot of us are sometimes
But you
busy on
wonder.
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and we
They're
don't
on
get a
purpose.
chance to look at it until Monday morning, and so the sooner we all get notified, the better.
Sounds good.
Anybody else have anything? Okay, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn.